wanted to change the pace a little bit, as this chosen career of reviewing the slop flushed out by Hollywood is the equivalent of standing in front of a fan when the crap hits it, and then trying to make you laugh while I explain what made this experience better or worse than the last time I stood in front of one. So seeing as I've scraped enough corn off my face at this point to replant an entire field, I figured I'd take a moment to discuss something else. Anything else that came to mind. Then the other day, I learned something that spiked my blood pressure like the national debt. Fede Alvarez confirmed Ellen Ripley was in fact in Alien Romulus. Great, now I can't tell if I'm living out Chevelle's most popular song or if it's the lingering pink eye because all I see is red. Obviously, I'm as behind as ever when it comes to information on the internet, but a few months ago, Collider released an article about an interview with Alvarez and Alien Romulus. In the article, Alvarez explains his line of logic, believing that the life pod should have had a beacon on it and thus should have been found after the events of Alien. And if you don't believe me, the ship was, in fact, in the Renaissance station and somehow jettisoned during the station's destruction. Now, a lot of people are freaking out with the usual, "Yes, this explains so much." I will slap your shit. Are you kidding me? Nothing about this makes any sense and worsens the already abysmal Romulus. For those unaware, the setup for Alien Romulus is that somehow, in the infinite void of space, debris of the Nostromo and the cocooned xenomorph were found and brought back to the Renaissance station operated by Weyland-Yutani. And this makes less sense than Brad Williams playing in the NBA. First off, there were no coordinates for the Nostromo's last known position, but somehow, with the magic of drugs so powerful they make fentanyl feel less potent than decaf coffee, Alvarez decided, screw it, the Nostromo debris, Alien, and Ripley's life pod were found in the same vicinity. So I'm going to explain why this makes no sense and doesn't enhance, rather damages, the already long since tarnished Alien franchise. The Nostromo, like the refinery at Toad, was powered by a fusion reactor, and the resulting explosions basically vaporized both vessels. The remnants would be little more than molecules at this point, so there shouldn't be anything left to find. But for the sake of those with the same IQ as Alvarez, let's say there was. There's still no way Yutani would find anything because the power of these sequential explosions would have launched the minuscule wreckage into any of the infinite directions of space with enough speed to implode the Enterprise. And by the way, another factor no one's accounting for is that at the time, space travel was not as efficient as it was in Aliens. In the sequel, it took 2 weeks to travel from Earth to LV-426. But Ripley's recording at the end of Alien says that it would take 6 weeks to reach the frontier systems in Alien. For a ballpark in distance, it is officially stated that LV-426, or Acheron as the moon is actually known as, is 39 light-years from Earth. Even if we assume the Renaissance station was already in the frontier systems, an unknown distance away, and could immediately head in the direction of the Nostromo's presumed location, assuming that knowledge was also had, then the debris of both vessels would have still been traveling at whatever speed, in whatever direction, for 6 weeks. The same thing goes for the big chap. No tracker, doesn't show up on infrared, and was jettisoned into space by the power of the life pod's thrusters. Even if we assume the thrusters didn't instantly kill it, because, actually a bit of trivia for all of you, many of the ships, though not all in the Alien franchise, use water as the reaction mass for thrusters instead of gasoline or other combustible materials. So there's your answer to the water on the camera at the end of Alien. You're welcome. Anyway, firing the thrusters launched the Alien into the direction of the Nostromo as the life pod traveled directly away from it. So that makes sense. However, the Alien would still have traveled past where the Nostromo detonated at said incredible speed for 6 weeks. So there's no way, even if the Alien did collide with some sort of debris, that it wouldn't have bounced off in some sort of direction at that speed. He would have ping-ponged into a completely different direction at that speed if that were the case. And lastly is Ripley's life pod, the Narcissus. Alvarez made the point in the Collider interview that as a life pod, it should have a beacon. This would ease the search and thus recovery of the Narcissus, and many people agree. Except that's not guaranteed because the life pod pod slipped through the frontier systems, and it was blind luck the deep space salvage crew stumbled upon it 57 years later. So none of this works because Alvarez thinks logistics is how many toothpicks you can make out of a log. And the last factor that denies the possibility of this happening is that Romulus takes place 20 years after Alien. So the 6-week timetable was me being lenient, because it's not how far would the debris, alien, and life pod travel in that time, but 20 years at whatever incredible speeds they were. It's impossible for Romulus to have happened unless the ridiculous Captain Marvel finding Tony Stark crap happened. But what if we ignore all of this and only focus on the events of the story? Well, that's arguably even worse. Why wouldn't the scientists awaken Ripley for information about the xenomorph? The only human with experience, and they left her on ice? Are we kidding? And Rook jettisoned the life pod during the Renaissance destruction. Oh, but ejecting her shuttle is the reason why she drifted so deep into space leading up to aliens. Well, that can't work because all of these people and Alvarez are operating on the assumption the beacon was on the shuttle, so why didn't they find it earlier? Losing the xenomorph makes Ripley the priority for knowledge about the aliens. Oh, well, the information from the Renaissance was transferred to the company, so they had it anyway. Okay, then why jettison Ripley if they have proof of aliens on LV-426? Wouldn't you want to get rid of all loose ends? Well, Ripley wasn't considered a threat, so jettisoning her was a quick way to get rid of her. Okay, again, why not keep the shuttle in the station as it broke apart? This is why I get angry when discussing logistics or major changes like these, because it's always about dangling keys in front of fans too desperate to understand or think through what they were given. Alvarez says Ripley's in Alien Romulus, and he's treated like a cinematic genius. But I ask questions from every angle trying to find even a scrap of plausibility for this Easter egg, to which there is none, and I know there will be a litany of people who disregard this as too nitpicky. Yeah, great, thanks. It's because of audiences and fans like these not thinking critically that results in the corporate slop Hollywood defecates on screen. And when inevitably cornered, the same stock response comes about as they ignore the valid criticism with the same old ironic statement. Don't think, just consume. Alien Romulus was already terrible, and Alvarez has made it worse. And the worst part, people actually defend him and the movie. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.